The Quranic verse about iron in Surah Al-Hadid remains deeply problematic when evaluated against modern knowledge of iron and what is known about beliefs and sacred texts around the time of Prophet Muhammad. The verse states that iron was sent down and that it contains great might and benefits for people, clearly presenting iron as a divinely provided resource linked to power, warfare, and social order. This framing fits a pre-modern outlook in which iron is primarily recognized as a hard metal for weapons, tools, and political power, but it does not match what is now known about iron's cosmological, geological, and biological roles. Realities that a creator of the universe, if speaking, should be expected to know and articulate, rather than limiting the description to the incomplete knowledge of a 7th century audience. First, the phrase, "we sent down iron," does not align with what is known about planetary formation. Iron did not arrive on a fully formed Earth as a later delivery. It was part of the material cloud from which the Earth itself formed. As the young Earth differentiated, heavy elements like iron sank toward the center, forming a mostly iron core, while lighter materials rose to form the mantle and crust. Today, the Earth's core and mantle contains about 95% of the total iron found in Earth. An overwhelming majority of the planet's iron, much of it in molten form, and only a relatively small fraction appears in the crust as accessible ore. So about 95% of the iron could not be sent down, as mentioned in Quran. This structure is crucial because the motion of molten iron in the outer core generates the geomagnetic field, which deflects harmful solar and cosmic radiation and helps preserve the atmosphere over geological timescales. Without iron in this role, Earth's surface would likely not be hospitable to complex life, and no living being, including humans, could have survived here. Yet the verse's emphasis on iron focuses on its might and human-level benefits, not on its foundational role in making the planet habitable at all. A description from an all-knowing, all-wise source, how actually created the Earth and the universe from nothing, would be expected to at least gesture toward this far more critical and crucial significance, rather than stopping at the most obvious uses. If iron were literally sent down to Earth in any straightforward sense, a reasonable expectation would be some emphasis on surface deposition or a special, distinct arrival. Instead, modern geology shows that iron is structurally bound into the Earth from the beginning, with the bulk locked deep below, not sprinkled down on an already existing world. The internal logic implied by sending down iron clashes with the actual distribution of iron on the planet. If iron were being presented as something given or lowered to people in a way that aligns with the wording, one might expect some hint that iron is especially present where humans can access it, or that it arrived in a distinct act separate from the formation of the Earth. In reality, almost all iron arrived before there even was a solid Earth to stand on. It was incorporated into the forming planet, then sank to the core. Only geological processes over immense timescales and some minor meteoritic contributions made a fraction of it available in the crust. Thus, the literal image evoked by sent down does not match the scientific picture of how iron came to be where it is. Second, the wording "sent down" aligns strikingly with how iron and meteorites were perceived in the broader religious and cultural environment near the time of Prophet Muhammad. Long before large-scale smelting of terrestrial iron became common, many societies used meteoritic iron and understood it as sky metal or metal from the gods. Ancient Egyptians, for example, crafted beads from meteoritic iron and associated them with the heavens. Mesopotamian terms and myths linked iron and meteorites with divine fire. In other cultures, meteorites were ritually significant, treated as heavenly objects endowed with sacred power. In the Arabian context, the idea that special stones or metals could come from the sky and carry divine significance was already present in religious imagination. In late antique Near Eastern Jewish and Christian literature as well, heavenly or fiery stones and metals appear as signs or gifts of God, reinforcing the notion that striking materials descending from above are divine tokens. sitting perfectly well and aligned with the verse of the Quran. Ancient peoples literally saw some iron fall from the heavens as meteorites, used it for elite or ritual objects, and built symbolic language around that phenomenon. Later, when terrestrial iron smelting spread, the older association between iron and the sky persisted in religious and cultural metaphors. The Quranic phrase naturally continues that conceptual line. Iron is from God. Iron comes down. Iron is tied to might and religious testing. This is exactly what one would expect a 7th century human-made text in that environment to say if it were reflecting the knowledge and symbolic universe of its time, not transcending it with scientifically precise cosmology or the words and knowledge of all-knowing creator of the universe. Third, the verses focus on iron's might as a human resource, especially in the context of weapons, power and social control, covers only a very narrow slice of iron's true significance. Iron is not just useful for swords, tools and infrastructure. Iron in the Earth's core drives the geodynamo that generates the magnetic field. That magnetic field is crucial for deflecting charged solar particles and protecting the atmosphere and surface from radiation that would otherwise strip away habitability. In other words, iron is not simply beneficial in a technological sense. It is foundational for the kind of long-term, stable environment in which complex life, including human beings, can exist at all. A text originating from an all-knowing source would be expected to emphasize or at least hint at this much deeper role, not restrict attention to the most obvious surface-level applications familiar to pre-modern societies whose experience of iron centered on warfare and construction. Fourth, there is a major gap between the verse's selective emphasis and the broader range of iron's roles that are now known. Iron is central not only to planetary structure and the magnetic field, but also to biology. Hemoglobin depends on iron to carry oxygen in the blood. Countless enzymes and cellular processes rely on iron as a cofactor. These are intimate, continuous benefits for people at the level of life itself. Yet none of this is even hinted at. Instead, the verse highlights the kind of benefit that would have been conspicuous to a 7th century audience. Iron as a symbol of power, war, and human authority, closely tied to the idea of testing who will support the divine cause. Taken together, these points lead to a clear and direct conclusion. The verse about iron reflects the understanding, metaphors, and priorities of a pre-scientific culture. Iron is seen as a hard, strong metal associated with weapons, power, and, through meteorites, the sky. The language of sending down matches how ancient peoples thought about metal from heaven, not how iron actually became part of the earth. The description omits the central scientific facts that iron is structurally fundamental to the planet, that it underpins the magnetic shield that makes life possible, and that it permeates biological systems in crucial ways. These conditions are continuous, fundamentally essential, and non-optional for human existence. In contrast, the verse's framing and traditional exegesis that focuses on iron's great might highlight primarily weaponry, military power, and human dominance, precisely the aspects visible to a 7th century audience shaped by constant warfare and tribal struggle. In the sacred texts of neighboring traditions, Jewish and Christian, iron likewise appears as a symbol of strength, weapons, yokes, and oppression. For example, iron yoke, iron furnace, iron rod, again emphasizing social and military power rather than planetary physics or biochemistry. The Quranic portrayal sits squarely in that same symbolic register. It does not rise above the shared late antique scriptural language to reveal anything that would only be accessible to a truly all-knowing perspective. The text does not display awareness of iron's role in forming the planet, generating the magnetic field, or sustaining life at the biochemical level. Instead of anticipating such knowledge, it mirrors the limitations and symbolic habits of its time. This leads to a direct and forceful argument. The verse about iron in Surah Al-Hadid fits naturally within the religious ideas, sacred symbolism, and scientific ignorance of the 7th century Near Eastern world. It aligns with how people and scriptures of that era spoke about powerful metals and heavenly stones, and it restricts itself to the obvious, surface-level benefits of iron. It does not exhibit the depth, precision, or scope that would reasonably be expected from an all-knowing creator of the universe, describing iron's place in the universe and in life. Please subscribe and provide feedback. And now by BookBook, Objective Analysis of God.
In the beginning, a divine creator shaped the cosmos from the void, but from humanity's sacred texts, another power arose, challenging this solitary reign. A celestial standoff for creation began.
Book promo.